Welcome to this episode of Smart Levers, and today we are taking a sharp direction. We are veering to the east and going into politics, right, Ramana? What is this east model that you're going to, talk to us about today?
Yeah, so politics does have a role in the East model because the East model was EAST model was developed by the British Nudge Unit, as they were called. Though officially, I think they had a name like the Behavioral Insights Group or something like that. So, if we've spoken about nudges and behavioral sciences in previous episodes of Smart Levers. The idea was that in addition to big incentives and penalties and pushing people and legislation and policies, there is also a role for tiny changes to your environment or to what is called a choice framework. You don't take away choices, but you bias humans making decisions in favor of certain choices you have decided are good for them. So this has been applied to situations like organ donation. This has been increased in situations where you want to encourage people to save energy in hotels and in houses and so on. So for a while, this literature and these studies have been coming together. And so the idea of nudges became popular thanks to a book by Cass Sunstein and Richard Thaler. Uh, and so government started picking up the idea of nudges because it's very seductive idea, small change, which you don't have to spend a lot of money in. And maybe you can also do in a very sort of below the radar sort of a manner. And the British government was one of those entities that really went behind the idea of nudges. They set up this nudge unit, and the nudge unit has had success and failure over a period of time. But they've established it as a another part of government policy. So that's where the politics of the political angle to our conversation comes in, because as you can imagine, this can be controversial in certain situations. After all, who is the government to decide what is good behavior and not? But that is a discussion for a separate day. What is the East model? The East model, or this, if you want to look East, it has four elements to it. And this is yet another behavior change model. We've discussed a few of them before. And the East model is stands for E for easy, A for attractive, S for social, and T for timely. And some of our readers who have or listeners have been listening to our smart levers right from episode 1. I think by now we'll start to put in some of the pieces themselves.
Yeah, so I think one thing to think about is that everyone is not going to be as ethical, a benevolent dictator like you, uh, which is why this is very important. This is very powerful, what you're talking about. So it has to be applied very judiciously. But then just talk to me about, how powerful this is, right? I mean, if you
Correct.
can give me some concrete examples, I think one example that comes to mind is how keeping the healthy snacks at eye level and easy to access while you keep the junk food deep inside the freezer is one way to encourage people to have healthy snacks. What are other ways in which the East model can be applied to individual or group behavior change?
Right. So actually, let's take an example of subscriptions. We live in a world where SaaS is a big business model, and even individuals have newsletters and things that you want people to subscribe to. So organizations, right from the New York Times, publishers, or SaaS model people, everyone wants you to subscribe to something and pay for that subscription. So let's see how the East model could come in handy there. The first is something like easy. Uh, how can you make this really easy to sign up for? And conversely, how can you make it really hard for people to opt out of a subscription? So you've heard of a lot of subscription platforms, media platforms, who are very good at signing you up. Maybe you didn't even sign up. They got your details from someone else and you find themselves on their newsletter. Or you clicked a button and before you knew it, you're paying them $5 every month. So the East model and its inversion. The previous episode we spoke about inversion. The opposite of easy is difficult. So you made it easy for someone to walk into the through the door, but you made it very difficult for them to leave. Has become a conscious business model for a lot of media platforms. And so that's an example of easy. Now let's say the next stage is attractive. You want people to sign up or subscribe for you. You will give them something very attractive to sign up. It could be the promise of winning $50 as a gift certificate if you take this survey, or you subscribe and you are, among the first 100 people this month to sign up. So that's something which is playing up on the attraction mode. And it could also be through things like surprise and gifts and anything that increases the chances that you want to do it for your own benefit.
Or
Then
it could be aspirational as well,
it
if I
could be
want to be associated with
absolutely,
this.
it could be aspirational, and that's where the attractiveness will come from. Since you mentioned aspirational, the social angle is a big part of aspiration as well. So I see someone maybe who's high status and I want to copy them. And so social behavior or social incentives are a big part. And that's the third, the S in our East model, wherein social proof, I behave like other people do, I behave like high status people do. That could be an example. So the message to subscribe could say that people from these institutions, or 99% of all Fortune 500 CEOs subscribe to our newsletter, are all social norms that you're creating around why it's cool, or why it's you should also be part of that same that group of people subscribing to this. So things like testimonials, things like social proof will come here. And finally, timeliness, which is if you are asking me to subscribe to your media platform or to your product when I'm in the middle of something chaotic, it's tax filing season, or I'm in the middle of exams, that's not a point where I'm going to drop that and come and do this. Or maybe you send me this message in the middle of the night. It's going to be forgotten. So being mindful of prompting people to sign up at the moment where they're most receptive and they're most likely to sign up for this is another angle, and that's the T of East. So just to recap, it's easy, attractive, social, and timely, and the opposites of it as well. If you don't see people signing up for your service, you can debug the situation using these four different aspects. And the nudge unit actually has a fairly broader framework called Mindspace, but East is like the smaller, simpler version because they made it easy for people to get started.
All right. And why do you think up levelers should know about this, and where all can they apply this, both in their
Correct.
personal lives as well as for their teams?
Right. So if you're interested in the world of behavioral sciences and you've heard of different biases, you have heard of successes that other people have had with applying behavioral sciences. So these are apt for situations where you may not have a lot of power at your hands to influence change, or you may not want to use it at that particular point. There is only so much of heavy pushing that you can do for even for yourselves. You want to adopt a new habit, say. So you can use this model. So for example, you're trying to get your team to start adopting a model of decision making, and you've heard smart levers in the past, you've heard of pre-mortems, and you've heard of uh, something like inversion. Uh, and you want to change the way people do decision making. Suddenly you can't throw all of these things at them. You might take an approach where you introduce one change. You say, let's do a 5-minute pre-mortem. That's the easy part of it. You may make it attractive. You may say that the person who came up with the most interesting, unthought of suggestion of why our project could go wrong in that pre-mortem will get that little reward. Will be called the pre-mortem champion of the world or something like that. So you make it a little attractive. Because you make this behavior in a group and you say everyone is liberated to be part of the pre-mortem, you lessen that social friction of speaking up, which is a big problem in a lot of social situations. And then it's timely. It's part of whenever you do a meeting. So this is an example of how you can be an effective change agent using the East model, whether it is for yourself or whether it is for your team.
Yeah. So knowing the East model is cool. All founders and leaders and great up levelers know about East model and such frameworks. So you know what you need to do next, right? You need to go and subscribe to that button on YouTube so that you get these kind of things, every week. Is that what you wanted me to say and do eventually?
Yes, that's what I wanted you to say.
On that note, nothing more said. All our audience has to do is go and click on that subscribe button. Thank you.
Thank you.